Taewon stepped off the transport shuttle and into Unity Station for the first time. The docking bay stretched far above his head, built for species much larger than humans. Everything here was huge. The corridors were wide enough to fit 3 Earth buses side by side. The ceilings disappeared into darkness above bright lights that hurt his eyes. He pulled his diplomatic case closer and walked toward the main hall. Other beings moved around him, and each one made him feel smaller. A group of Sylvari passed by, their scaled bodies towering at least 9 feet tall. Their eyes glanced down at him with something that looked like amusement. One of them made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. Taewon kept his face neutral. He had expected this. Earth was new to the galactic community. Humans had only made contact 5 years ago, and most species still saw them as a curiosity. Or worse, as a joke. The main diplomatic hall was even more overwhelming. Hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds filled the massive space. Some had forearms, others had scales or fur or skin that seemed to shift colors. Languages mixed together in a noise that made Taewon's translator earpiece work overtime. "There you are." Hi-Rim appeared beside him, her face showing relief. She was a xenobiologist assigned to support the human diplomatic mission. "I was worried you got lost. This place is like a maze." "It's bigger than I imagined," Taewon admitted. "Everything here is built for the big species." Hi-Rim said quietly. "Most of the galactic community comes from high-gravity worlds. They're all tall and strong. We're going to look like children next to them." She was right. As they walked through the hall, other beings barely seemed to notice them. When they did notice, the looks were not respectful. A few beings even walked directly at them, forcing Taewon and Hi-Rim to step aside. They reached the human embassy section, a small corner of the station that Earth had been granted. It was modest compared to the sprawling territories of older species. Inside, a few other human staff members were busy preparing reports and data. "Ambassador Thex has been talking," one of the staff members said. "He's been telling everyone that humans shouldn't be allowed into the trade treaty discussions." Taewon felt his stomach tighten. Ambassador Thex was a Sylvari diplomat, and he had made his opinions about humans very clear. He thought Earth was too primitive, too weak to deserve a place among the established powers. "What's his reasoning?" Taewon asked. "He says we haven't proven ourselves, that we're too fragile, too small. He thinks we'll collapse the first time there's real pressure." The staff member shook his head. He's got support too. A lot of species agree with him. Hi-Rim touched Taewon's arm. "We need to be careful. If we're excluded from this treaty, Earth will be left behind. We'll lose access to trade routes, medical technology, everything." Taewon nodded. He understood what was at stake. That evening, there was a formal reception in the council chamber. It was meant to be a social event where diplomats could meet and talk informally. Taewon put on his formal clothes and went, even though he dreaded it. The moment he entered the chamber, he felt eyes on him. Not curious eyes. Dismissive ones. He moved through the crowd trying to introduce himself and start conversations. Most beings responded with short, polite words before turning away. Some didn't even bother with politeness. Ambassador Thex stood near the center of the room, surrounded by a group of other diplomats. His scales gleamed under the lights and his voice carried across the space. "The humans want to join our discussions," Thex was saying, loud enough for many to hear. "But what have they accomplished? They barely have faster than light travel. Their weapons are primitive. Their world is so soft that they break easily." He laughed and others joined him. Taewon kept walking, pretending he hadn't heard, but his face burned with anger and shame. A large insectoid being bumped into him, nearly knocking him over. The being didn't apologize, just kept walking. Another diplomat stepped in front of him, blocking his path, and took several seconds before moving aside with an annoyed click. Hi-Rim found him near the edge of the room. "This is worse than I thought," she said quietly. "They're not even pretending to respect us." "I know," Taewon said. "Maybe we should leave. There's no point staying if they're just going to humiliate us." Taewon wanted to agree, but something stubborn inside him refused. "We stay. We're here officially, and we have every right to be here." After another hour of being ignored and dismissed, Taewon needed air. He left the reception and walked through the quieter corridors of the station. His translator earpiece buzzed occasionally as automated announcements played. He found himself in a section he didn't recognize. The corridors here were darker, and warning signs were posted on the walls in several languages. His translator rendered them as restricted area, authorized personnel only. Taewon knew he should turn back, but his frustration pushed him forward. He just wanted a few more minutes away from the crowds and the contempt. He turned a corner and stopped. A massive transparent barrier stretched across the corridor, and beyond it was something that looked like a jungle. Plants with purple leaves grew thick and wild. The air on the other side seemed to shimmer with heat. This was a preserve, Taewon realized. A simulated environment for some species. Then he saw movement. Something large shifted in the shadows of the purple jungle. Taewon stepped closer to the barrier, curiosity overtaking caution. The creature emerged into the light, and Taewon's breath caught. It was enormous, easily the size of an earth tiger but built more powerfully. 6 limbs moved with liquid grace, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. Its body was covered in dark scales that reflected the light like black glass. The head was angular and predatory, with amber eyes that glowed in the dim light. A long tail moved behind it, tipped with what looked like a blade of bone. This was an apex predator. Every instinct in Taewon's body told him he was looking at something that could kill him without effort. The creature moved closer to the barrier, its eyes fixed on him. Then Taewon noticed something else. The creature was limping. One of its front limbs was held awkwardly, and there was a dark stain on its scales. Blood. The creature made a low sound, something between a growl and a rumble. Taewon looked around. There were no station personnel nearby, no one monitoring this area. The creature was injured and alone. His background in wildlife conservation kicked in. Before joining the diplomatic corps, Taewon had spent years working with dangerous animals on Earth. He knew predators. He knew how they thought and moved and reacted. This creature wasn't showing aggression. It was showing pain. Taewon looked at the barrier controls. They were locked, but the panel showed that there had been a malfunction. The containment had partially failed and the emergency systems had sealed the section. The creature was trapped in a damaged environment, hurt and unable to get help. Taewon knew he should call station security. He should walk away and let the professionals handle this. But something in those amber eyes stopped him. The creature watched him, intelligent and aware. Taewon made a decision. He accessed the barrier controls and found the emergency override. If he was careful, he could open a small maintenance hatch. Just enough to get closer, just enough to help. He pressed the control, and the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. The creature's eyes tracked the movement. Taewon took a breath and stepped through the hatch into the preserve. The air was hot and thick, heavy with the smell of plants and something else. Something wild. The creature didn't move. Taewon stood still, keeping his body language calm and non-threatening. He had done this 100 times with injured animals on Earth. "I'm here to help," he said softly, even though he knew the creature couldn't understand his words. But his tone might register. The creature's tail moved slowly, not aggressively. Its amber eyes never left Taewon's face. Slowly, carefully, Taewon moved closer. Every muscle in his body was tense, ready to react if the creature attacked, but it didn't. Instead, after a long moment, the creature lowered itself to the ground. Its injured limb extended toward him. Taewon felt his heart pounding. This was trust. This massive, deadly predator was choosing to trust him. He knelt beside the creature and examined the wound. It was deep, probably from the containment failure. The creature made a low rumbling sound but didn't pull away. Taewon opened his diplomatic case and pulled out a basic medical kit. It wasn't much, but it would help. As he worked, cleaning and bandaging the wound, the creature remained still. Its amber eyes watched him with an intensity that felt almost human. "You're not so different from Earth's big cats," Taewon murmured. "You're just scared and hurt, like anyone would be." The creature made another sound, softer this time. Taewon finished treating the wound and sat back. The creature raised its head and looked at him for a long moment. Then, it did something that made Taewon's eyes widen. The creature lowered its massive head and gently touched Taewon's shoulder with its snout. The gesture was unmistakable. Gratitude. Taewon reached up slowly and rested his hand on the creature's scaled head. And in that moment, in a dark corner of Unity Station that no one cared about, a bond formed between a dismissed human and an apex predator. Neither of them knew it yet, but that bond would change everything. Taewon lost track of time in the preserve. He stayed with the creature, making sure the bandages held and the wound wasn't getting worse. The creature, which he had started thinking of as his patient, remained calm. It watched him with those intelligent amber eyes, occasionally making soft rumbling sounds. After what felt like hours, Taewon heard voices outside the barrier. Loud, urgent voices. The sensors show someone breached the Vrelnath preserve, a voice shouted. "Security, get a team here now." Taewon's stomach dropped. Vrelnath. That was the name of this creature's species. Heavy footsteps rushed toward the preserve. Taewon stood up and the creature rose with him, placing itself between Taewon and the barrier. The security team arrived, at least a dozen beings in armor carrying weapons. They stopped when they saw through the barrier. By the void, one of them breathed. "There's someone in there." "He's already dead," another said. "Vrelnath don't leave survivors." The team leader, a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms, activated a communication device. "This is Security Chief Ral. We have a breach in the Vrelnath preserve. One being inside, likely deceased. Preparing to—" He stopped, looking closer. "Wait, he's moving." "He's alive." "Impossible," someone said. Through the barrier, Taewon could see the shock on their faces. He raised his hand in a small wave, trying to show he was all right. "Get him out of there," Chief Ral ordered. "Open the emergency extraction portal. Move." "Sir, if we open anything, the Vrelnath might attack," one of the security officers said nervously. "Just do it." A section of the barrier shimmered and opened. The security team raised their weapons, aimed at the creature standing beside Taewon. "Step away from it slowly," Chief Ral called out. "Don't make sudden movements." Taewon looked at the creature. Its body was tense, sensing the threat. He placed his hand on its scaled shoulder. "It's all right," he said softly. "They're just scared." The creature's amber eyes shifted from the security team to Taewon. Then slowly it relaxed. Taewon walked toward the opening and the creature walked with him. The security team backed up, weapons still raised. "Stay calm," Taewon said as he stepped through. "The Vrelnath is injured." "I was helping it." "You were helping a Vrelnath?" Chief Ral stared at him like he had grown a second head. "Do you have any idea what that thing is?" "Vrelnath are apex predators from one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. They're kept here in containment because they're too dangerous to be around other species." "It was hurt," Taewon said simply. "I'm a trained wildlife conservationist. I knew what I was doing." "No, you really didn't," one of the officers muttered. The creature, the Vrelnath, followed Taewon through the opening. The security team scrambled back, weapons tracking its movement. "Lower your weapons," Taewon said firmly. "You're threatening it." "We're threatening it," an officer said incredulously. Chief Ral held up one hand, signaling his team to lower their weapons slightly. He studied the Vrelnath, which stood calmly beside Taewon. "This doesn't make sense. Vrelnath are aggressive. They attack anything that enters their territory. We've lost 3 handlers in the past year." "Maybe they were approaching it wrong," Taewon said. The Vrelnath made a low rumbling sound and pressed its shoulder against Taewon's side. The gesture was almost affectionate. Chief Ral's eyes widened. "What species are you?" "Human, from Earth. I've heard of your species. You're the new ones, small, weak." Chief Ral looked between Taewon and the Vrelnath. "How did you bond with a Vrelnath?" "I didn't try to dominate it or scare it," Taewon said. "I just helped." Within an hour, word had spread through Unity Station. The small human who everyone had dismissed had somehow bonded with a Vrelnath alpha predator. Taewon was escorted to the medical bay where station doctors checked him for injuries. They found none. The Vrelnath, which the station staff called Kiva, refused to leave Taewon's side. It sat outside the examination room and anyone who tried to make it move backed off when it growled. Hirim rushed into the medical bay, her face pale. "Taewon, I heard what happened." "Are you insane?" "You went into a predator preserve?" "The predator was injured," Taewon said, pulling his shirt back on. "Someone had to help. Someone trained to deal with Vrelnath," Hiram said. "Not a human diplomat. I am trained. I worked with predators for years." "Earth predators," Hiram stressed. "Not apex hunters from death worlds." Taewon walked to the door and looked out at Kiva, who was watching him through the transparent wall. "Predators are predators. The principles are the same. Respect, not fear. Understanding, not dominance." Hiram followed his gaze. "That thing could tear you apart. So could a tiger." but I've worked with tigers. Taewon opened the door and Kiva immediately moved to his side. Kiva chose to trust me. Kiva. That's what the station staff calls it. Hiram stared at the massive creature. It's following you like a pet. Not a pet. A companion. News of the incident reached the diplomatic quarters quickly. By the time Taewon returned to the human embassy section, a crowd of curious beings had gathered outside. They whispered and pointed as he passed, Kiva walking beside him. Inside the embassy, the staff surrounded him with questions. The senior diplomat, a woman named Dae-yoon, looked both impressed and concerned. Taewon, you've caused quite a stir, she said. Half the station is talking about the human who tamed Avrelnath. I didn't tame anything, Taewon corrected. Kiva and I just understand each other. Do you realize what this means? Dae-yoon asked. Avrelnath are legendary. Every species in the galaxy knows about them. They're considered impossible to bond with, and you did it on your first day here. I wasn't trying to prove anything, Taewon said. I was just helping an injured animal. Dae-yoon smiled. Well, you've certainly gotten their attention. Ambassador Thex has been very quiet since he heard. That caught Taewon's interest. Quiet? His entire argument is that humans are too weak and primitive to matter. But you just bonded with something that terrifies most of the galaxy. Dae-yoon's smile grew. That's not weak. That's extraordinary. The next day, Taewon received a formal summons. The council arbiter, the neutral mediator who oversaw all diplomatic proceedings, wanted to meet him. Taewon entered the arbiter's chamber with Kiva at his side. The chamber was a large circular room with a floating platform at the center. On that platform hovered the arbiter, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form. Human Taewon, the arbiter's voice resonated through the room, translated into something Taewon could understand. You have done something remarkable. I only helped an injured creature, Taewon said. You bonded with Avrelnath Alpha. Do you understand what that means? I'm beginning to, Taewon admitted. The arbiter's form pulsed with light. Avrelnath are among the most dangerous species known. They judge other beings through what they call soul scent. They detect fear, aggression, dishonesty. Most beings fail this test. The Avrelnath kill those they judge as threatening or false. Taewon felt a chill. He had been closer to death than he realized. But you, the arbiter continued, showed no aggression, no fear meant to hide hostile intent. You approached with genuine concern. The Avrelnath judged you worthy. Kiva rumbled softly beside Taewon as if confirming the arbiter's words. This bond speaks to your character, the arbiter said, and it speaks to your species. Humanity is new to our community and many question your worth. But this bond suggests that humans possess qualities we should value. What qualities? Taewon asked. Empathy, courage without aggression, the ability to see beyond fear. The arbiter's light grew brighter. These are rare traits in the galaxy. Most species conquer or dominate, but you sought to understand and help. Taewon didn't know what to say. He had just followed his instincts. I will be watching your species with great interest, the arbiter said. You may leave. As Taewon left the chamber, he found Hiram waiting outside. Her expression was serious. What is it? Taewon asked. Ambassador Thex has called for a formal challenge, Hiram said quietly. He's demanding that Earth prove its worth to join the trade treaty. What kind of challenge? The old kind. Trial by the arena. Taewon felt his heart sink. What does that mean? It means you have to face tests of strength, cunning, and worthiness, Hiram said. If you fail, Earth is excluded from the treaty. We lose everything. Taewon looked down at Kiva, who gazed back at him with those knowing amber eyes. I don't have a choice, do I? He asked. No, Hiram said. The challenge has been issued. If we refuse, we're seen as cowards. Either way, we lose, Taewon took a deep breath. He had come to Unity Station to help Earth find its place among the stars. He hadn't expected to have to fight for it, but if that's what it took, he would do it. When is the trial? He asked. 3 days, Hiram said. Then I have 3 days to prepare. Kiva pressed against his side, and Taewon placed his hand on the creature's scaled head. Whatever was coming, at least he wouldn't face it alone. The announcement of the arena challenge spread through Unity Station like fire. Within hours, every species knew that Earth's place in the galactic community would be decided by trial. Taewon spent the first day studying recordings of past arena trials. The human embassy had access to a database of challenges going back centuries. He sat in a quiet room watching beings fight, solve puzzles, and face impossible tests. Hiram brought him food that he barely touched. "You need to eat," she said. "I need to understand what I'm facing," Taewon replied, his eyes fixed on the screen. Most of these challengers are warriors, soldiers, beings bred for combat. Hiram's voice was heavy with worry. "You're a wildlife conservationist turned diplomat. How are you supposed to compete with that?" "I don't know yet," Taewon admitted, "but there has to be a way." On the screen, a massive reptilian creature defeated 3 opponents in hand-to-hand combat. The crowd cheered. Taewon paused the recording. "They all use strength," he said slowly. "Or superior technology. They rely on being bigger, faster, stronger. Because that's what wins," Hiram said. "Maybe." Taewon scrolled through more recordings. But what if that's not the only way? He found recordings of challenges that didn't involve combat. Maze-solving trials, tests of endurance, puzzles that required logic rather than muscle. "There's variety in these trials," Taewon said. "They're not all about fighting. But they're all designed to push challengers to their limits," Hiram countered. "And the limits for most species are far beyond human capabilities." Taewon looked at Kiva, who lay near the door. The Vrelnath had refused to leave him since the challenge was announced. "Humans have survived on Earth for millions of years," Taewon said. "Not because we're the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we adapt, we think. We find ways around problems instead of going through them." "I hope you're right," Hiram said quietly. The second day, Taewon received visitors. Dayun entered with news that made his stomach turn. "The council has agreed to Thex's terms," she said. "The trial will consist of 3 tests: combat, cunning, and worthiness." "What does worthiness mean?" Taewon asked. "No one knows exactly. It changes with each trial. But it's meant to test the core character of the challenger and their species." "When do I learn what the specific tests are?" "You don't," Dayun said. "That's part of the challenge. You have to face the unknown and adapt." Taewon nodded slowly. Adapt. That was something humans knew how to do. Later that day, High Commander Vorn came to the embassy. The towering insectoid warrior had to duck through the doorway. His chitinous armor gleamed under the lights, and his multiple eyes focused on Taewon with unsettling intensity. "Human," Vorn said, his voice clicking and buzzing through a translator. "I came to see the one who will represent Earth." "I'm Taewon," he said, standing to face the commander. Vorn circled him slowly, examining him from every angle. "You are small, fragile, your bones would break easily." "Probably," Taewon agreed, "yet you bonded with a Vrelnath." "This puzzles me. Why does it puzzle you? Vrelnath respect only strength, but you have no strength by galactic standards." Vorn's mandibles clicked. "How did you earn its respect?" Taewon glanced at Kiva. "I didn't try to dominate. I didn't try to prove I was stronger. I just helped when help was needed." Vorn was silent for a moment. "Strange philosophy. In my culture, the strong lead. The weak follow or die. In mine, the strong protect. And anyone can be strong in different ways." Vorn made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see if your way has merit. The arena will judge." He turned to leave, then paused. "I do not think you will survive, human. But I find myself hoping I am wrong." After Vorn left, Hiram looked shaken. That was the closest thing to encouragement we're going to get from him. "It's something," Taewon said. On the 3rd day, the day of the trial, Taewon woke early. He couldn't sleep. His mind kept running through scenarios, possibilities, fears. Kiva sensed his anxiety. The Vrelnath pressed close, its massive head resting near Taewon's hand. The gesture was comforting. "You know what's coming, don't you?" Taewon said softly. "You can sense it." Kiva's amber eyes watched him steadily. "I'm scared," Taewon admitted. "I'm trying not to be, but I am. I'm just one person, and Earth's entire future depends on what I do today." The Vrelnath made a low rumbling sound, something Taewon had come to recognize as reassurance. "You'll be there, won't you?" Taewon asked. Kiva's response was to stand and position itself next to him, ready to follow wherever he went. The arena was located in the oldest part of Unity Station. It was a massive circular chamber that could be reconfigured for any type of challenge. When Taewon entered, he saw thousands of beings filling the observation decks above. Every species in the station had come to watch. The floor of the arena was bare metal, circular and smooth. Lights blazed down from above. In the center stood the Council Arbiter's projection. along with Ambassador Thex and High Commander Vorn. Human Taiwan. The Arbiter's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand here to prove your species worthy of joining the Galactic Trade Alliance. Do you accept this challenge? Taiwan's mouth was dry, but his voice was steady. I accept. Then let the trials begin. Ambassador Thex stepped forward, his scaled face twisted with satisfaction. The first trial is combat. You will face a warrior of my choosing. If you survive, you may proceed. If you fall, Earth is denied. A door opened on the far side of the arena. Through it came a Dravik warrior, one of Vorn's people. The insectoid stood 8 feet tall, its forearms ending in natural weapons that looked like blades. Armor covered its body, and its multiple eyes fixed on Taiwan with predatory focus. The crowd roared with excitement. Taiwan had no armor, no weapons, except a simple staff they had allowed him. He looked at the Dravik warrior and knew he couldn't match its strength or speed. Begin, the Arbiter announced. The Dravik charged immediately, all 4 arms extended. Taiwan rolled to the side, barely avoiding the attack. The warrior's blade arm struck the metal floor with a screech that made Taiwan's teeth hurt. He scrambled to his feet and backed away, trying to put distance between them. The Dravik pursued, relentless. Taiwan couldn't win through strength, so he had to win through something else. He watched the warrior's movements, looking for patterns. The Dravik was fast, but its attacks were straightforward. It relied on overwhelming opponents with aggression and multiple strikes. When the warrior charged again, Taiwan didn't dodge to the side. He dropped flat to the ground and rolled between the Dravik's legs. The warrior's momentum carried it forward, and it stumbled. The crowd gasped. Taiwan was already moving. He used his staff to trip one of the Dravik's legs, sending the warrior crashing to the floor. Before it could recover, Taiwan struck precisely at the joints where its armor was weakest, not to kill but to disable. The Dravik tried to rise, but Taiwan had learned the pressure points. He struck again, and the warrior's limbs went numb. In less than 3 minutes, the Dravik warrior was on the ground, unable to fight. The arena fell silent. Taiwan stepped back, breathing hard. He hadn't killed his opponent. He hadn't even seriously injured it, but he had won. First trial complete, the Arbiter announced. The human demonstrates cunning over strength. Ambassador Thex's face showed shock, then anger. He got lucky, Thex hissed. The second trial will reveal the truth, Vorn said, and there was something in his voice that might have been respect. The arena floor shifted and changed. Walls rose from the ground, forming a maze. Screens appeared showing the interior, full of traps and obstacles designed for different species. The second trial is the Maze of Trials, the Arbiter said. Navigate to the center and claim the token within. The maze adapts to each species, creating challenges suited to their abilities. The average time to complete is 1 standard hour. Taiwan looked at the maze entrance. What happens if I don't complete it in time? The walls begin to close, Vorn said. You will be crushed. The crowd murmured with anticipation. Taiwan entered the maze. Immediately, the walls shifted behind him, blocking his retreat. There was only forward. The first trap was a pit filled with electrified water, too wide to jump, too deadly to swim through. Taiwan examined it carefully. Large species would have to find another route, but he was smaller. He noticed narrow ledges along the walls, barely wide enough for his feet. He inched along them carefully, arms spread for balance. A larger being couldn't have used this path. The second obstacle was a door sealed by a puzzle. Symbols covered its surface, and a timer counted down. Taiwan studied the symbols. They were based on mathematical relationships, prime numbers forming patterns. He solved it in 4 minutes. The third challenge was a corridor filled with swinging blades. They moved in patterns, timed for beings with different movement speeds. Taiwan watched carefully, calculating the rhythm. Then he ran. His smaller size let him duck under blades that would have hit larger species. He slid on his knees under the lowest one and rolled through just as it swung past. He reached the center of the maze in 37 minutes. The token, a glowing crystal, sat on a pedestal. Taiwan grabbed it and held it high. The maze walls lowered. The crowd's silence broke into confused chatter. Second trial complete, the Arbiter said. The human demonstrates adaptation and intelligence. Ambassador Thex stood abruptly. The Rekvar emerged from the darkness, and Taiwan understood why no one had survived facing one. It was a nightmare given flesh, 12 feet tall when it stood on its hind legs, covered in overlapping plates of natural armor that looked like black stone. Six eyes glowed red in its skull-like head. Its mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth designed to tear through metal. Four massive arms ended in claws that could disembowel prey with a single swipe. The tail was thick as a tree trunk, tipped with a spiked ball that could crush bones. The creature moved into the arena, and its roar shook the air. Several beings in the observation deck backed away from the transparent barriers, instinctive fear overriding their safety. Taewon stood alone in the center of the arena. He had no weapon now, nothing but his wits and his body. The Rekvar's six eyes fixed on him, identifying prey. The crowd fell absolutely silent. Even Ambassador Thex watched with dark satisfaction, certain he was about to witness a human's death. The Rekvar charged. Its speed was incredible for something so massive. The ground shook with each step. Taewon couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. The arena was an open circle, no cover, no escape. Time seemed to slow. Taewon's mind raced through everything he knew about predators. Earth predators, alien predators, the principles were universal. Predators hunted when they identified prey as weak, as vulnerable as food. But what happened when prey didn't act like prey? The Rekvar was almost upon him, claws extended to tear him apart. Then something else moved. Kiva exploded into motion. The Vrelnath had been standing beside the Arbiter. But now it launched itself from the observation platform into the arena. Six limbs carried it with devastating speed across the metal floor. The crowd gasped in shock. Kiva landed between Taewon and the Rekvar just as the beast's claws descended. The two apex predators collided with a sound like thunder. "Stop," Ambassador Thex screamed. "This is interference. The human must face the trial alone." But the Arbiter's voice cut through the chaos. "The Vrelnath acts of its own will. It has not been commanded or controlled. This is not interference." Kiva and the Rekvar faced each other. Both were apex predators from Death Worlds. Both were built to kill. But Kiva was a Vrelnath alpha, and even the Rekvar seemed to recognize what that meant. Kiva did not attack. Instead, it did something far more powerful. It displayed dominance. The Vrelnath raised itself to full height, all six limbs planted firmly. Its scales rippled with colors that Taewon had never seen before, patterns that seemed to carry meaning in the language of predators. Its amber eyes blazed with an intensity that was almost physical, and it roared. The sound was not just noise. It was a declaration, a statement of absolute authority that resonated through the arena and into the bones of every being present. The Rekvar stopped. Its red eyes flickered with confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like fear. Kiva took one step forward and the Rekvar backed up. The massive beast that had killed dozens of challengers was retreating from the Vrelnath's presence alone. Taewon watched in awe. This was what true apex predator dominance looked like. Kiva wasn't fighting. It was simply being what it was, and that was enough. The Rekvar lowered its head, a gesture of submission. Then it turned and walked back toward the door it had come from, defeated without a single blow being struck. The arena was absolutely silent. Taewon walked forward and placed his hand on Kiva's scaled shoulder. The Vrelnath lowered itself beside him, and Taewon stood with his hand resting on the creature that had just saved his life. "This is not a victory," Ambassador Thex shouted, his voice shaking with rage. "The human used a creature. He did not face the trial himself. Did I command Kiva to act?" Taewon's voice rang clear through the arena. He looked up at Thex, at Vorn, at the Arbiter. "Did I control this Vrelnath?" "Did I force it to fight for me?" "Silence. No," the Arbiter said. "The Vrelnath chose to act." "Then doesn't that prove something?" Taewon asked. "I bonded with an apex predator that no one else could approach. Kiva chose to stand beside me, chose to protect me, not because I dominated it or controlled it, but because we understand each other." He looked around the arena at the thousands of watching beings. "You call humans weak because we're small. You call us unworthy because we don't have the same strength as other species. But worthiness isn't about size or strength. It's about the connections we make, the trust we earn, the way we treat others." His voice grew stronger. "I didn't conquer Kiva. I helped when help was needed. I showed respect, not fear. And Kiva responded to that. Isn't that what worthiness really means? Not dominating others, but earning their respect and loyalty?" High Commander Vorn stood from his seat. The massive insectoid looked at Taewon for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice carrying through the arena. "I was wrong about humans," Vorn said. I thought them weak and insignificant. I voted to deny them treaty access. He paused. But I have watched this human face challenges no one expected him to survive. He used intelligence where others used strength. He adapted where others would have broken. And he earned the loyalty of Avrelnath Alpha through compassion and respect. Vorn turned to face the other observers. These are not the qualities of a weak species. These are the qualities we should value in our galactic community. Ambassador Thex's face twisted with fury. This is madness. You cannot seriously consider silence. The Arbiter's voice was not loud, but it carried absolute authority. The trials are complete. The human has demonstrated strength through cunning, adaptation through intelligence, and worthiness through the bond he has formed with one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with light. I have witnessed many trials in my centuries of service. I have seen warriors defeat armies, scholars solve impossible puzzles, and leaders inspire loyalty through fear or power. But I have never seen what I witnessed today. The Arbiter looked at Taewon. You faced death with courage but without aggression. You won challenges not by overpowering opponents but by understanding them, and you earned the loyalty of Avrelnath through simple compassion. These are rare qualities in our galaxy. The light around the Arbiter grew brighter. The third trial tested worthiness. The question was not whether you could kill the Rekvar, but whether you possessed qualities that make a species valuable to our community. The answer is clear. The Arbiter turned to address the entire arena. Human Taewon has passed all 3 trials. Earth has proven its worth. The arena erupted, not in cheers but in shocked conversation. Beings argued, debated, questioned. But beneath it all, Taewon could feel something shift. The way beings looked at him had changed. There was no more dismissal in their eyes. Some showed respect. Others showed uncertainty. But none showed contempt. Ambassador Thex stood rigid, his scaled hands clenched. This is not over, he hissed. The council still must vote. They must, the Arbiter agreed. But they have seen what I have seen. The vote will reflect this. Taewon felt his legs start to shake as the adrenaline left his body. Everything he had just survived hit him at once. Kiva pressed against him, supporting him. Hirim and Da Yun rushed into the arena along with other human staff. They surrounded Taewon, their faces showing relief and pride and disbelief. You did it, Hirim said, her voice breaking. I thought you were dead. When that monster came out, I thought we'd lost you. I almost was, Taewon admitted. If Kiva hadn't, but Kiva did, Doan said. Because you earned that loyalty. Because you showed them all what humans really are. As they helped Taewon from the arena floor, he looked back at the space where he had faced impossible challenges. Part of him couldn't believe he had survived. Part of him couldn't believe any of this was real. But it was real. Earth had been tested, and through him, Earth had proven itself worthy. Now came the hardest part. The council had to vote, and Ambassador Thex would do everything in his power to sway that vote against humanity. Taewon looked at Kiva, who walked beside him with protective vigilance. Whatever came next, whatever challenges remained, he wouldn't face them alone. The small human and the apex predator walked together through Unity Station, and for the first time since he had arrived, beings stepped aside not with contempt but with respect. The dismissal was over. Now came the real test of whether that respect would translate into acceptance. The council vote would be tomorrow. Earth's future hung in the balance. But tonight Taewon had survived the impossible, and that had to mean something. It had to mean that humanity's place among the stars was no longer a joke. It was a possibility, a real possibility. And sometimes possibility was enough to change everything. The council chamber was filled to capacity. Every species that had a voice in galactic politics had sent representatives. The curved rows of seats rose high above the central floor where Taewon stood with the other human diplomats. Kiva lay beside him, a constant presence that drew eyes from every direction. The council arbiter floated at the center, its crystalline form casting rainbow light across the chamber. Around it sat the senior members of various galactic powers, including Ambassador Thex and High Commander Vorn. Taewon's hands were steady, but his heart raced. Everything came down to this vote. If the Council denied Earth membership in the Galactic Trade Alliance, humanity would be isolated, cut off from the resources and knowledge that other species took for granted. We convene to decide the matter of Earth's petition for treaty membership, the arbiter announced. Human Taiwan has completed the trials. Now the Council must vote on whether humanity has proven its worth. Ambassador Thex stood immediately. His scaled form seemed to radiate anger. I move to deny Earth's petition, he said, his voice carrying through the chamber, while the human showed some cunning in the trials. This does not prove that his species deserves a place among us. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The trials are ancient tradition, a delegate from the Kelvis Consortium said. If the human passed them, what grounds do you have for denial? He passed them through trickery and luck, Thex argued. In the combat trial, he faced a single warrior. What would happen if humans faced a real military threat? They would collapse. In the maze, he used his small size as an advantage. This is not strength, merely adaptation to weakness. And in the final trial, he did not defeat the Rekvar himself. He relied on a Vrelnath. Are you saying the bond with the Vrelnath means nothing? Vorn's voice cut through the chamber. The High Commander stood, his insectoid form towering over most present. I have fought battles across 50 star systems. I have seen warriors of every type. And I tell you, what that human did was more impressive than any victory in combat. Thex turned to face Vorn. You defend them because you were impressed by a parlor trick. The Vrelnath acted to protect its territory, nothing more. You are wrong. Vorn's mandibles clicked sharply. I have studied Vrelnath behavior for decades. My people have tried to bond with them for military purposes. We failed. Every species has failed, until this human walked into a preserve and earned a Vrelnath Alpha's loyalty and ours. That proves he can befriend animals, Thex said dismissively. It does not prove his species can contribute to our community. Taiwan had been silent, listening. But now he stepped forward. May I speak? The arbiter's light pulsed. You may address the council. Taiwan looked around the chamber at the hundreds of beings watching him. Some with interest, some with skepticism, some with outright hostility. Ambassador Thex is right about some things. Taiwan began. Humans are small compared to most of you. We're not as strong as Dravik warriors. We don't have the natural weapons that many species possess. Our technology is primitive by galactic standards. He saw confusion on some faces. Hiram looked worried, uncertain why he was agreeing with their opponent. But he's wrong about what that means, Taiwan continued. Humans survived on Earth not because we were the biggest predators. We weren't. We survived because we learned to work together, to adapt, to find solutions when brute force wasn't enough. He gestured to Kiva. You all keep calling what happened with Kiva a trick or luck, but it wasn't. I approached an injured predator with respect and without fear meant to hide aggression. Kiva judged my intent and found it worthy. That's not luck. That's understanding. Understanding? Thex scoffed. You speak as if this is valuable. It is valuable, Taiwan said firmly. How many conflicts in galactic history have happened because species didn't try to understand each other? How many wars started because one side assumed the worst about the other? He looked directly at Thex. You assumed the worst about humans from the moment we arrived. You saw our size and decided we were weak. You saw our limited technology and decided we were primitive. You never asked what we could offer. You just dismissed us. The chamber was silent now, every being focused on Taiwan's words. Humans have something to contribute, Taiwan said. We have empathy. We have the ability to build bridges between different groups. We have experience adapting to challenges with limited resources. These might not seem as impressive as military might or advanced technology, but they matter. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The galaxy is big and it's full of different species with different needs and different ways of thinking. What happens when conflicts arise? What happens when species can't communicate or understand each other? You need mediators. You need beings who can see multiple perspectives and find common ground. That's what humans can offer. A delegate from a species Taiwan didn't recognize spoke up. Pretty words, human. But words are cheap. How do we know your species will deliver on these promises? You don't, Taiwan admitted. Not with certainty. But isn't that true of any new member? When any species joins the alliance, there's risk. There's uncertainty. You're asking us to prove something that can only be proven over time. Then why should we take that risk? The delegate asked. Taiwan smiled slightly. Because I'm standing here. Because I passed your trials not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being resourceful and earning trust. If one human can do that, what could humanity accomplish if given the chance? High Commander Vorn spoke again. I support Earth's membership. His declaration sent ripples through the chamber. My people value strength above all else. But I have learned that strength takes many forms. The humans have demonstrated a strength of character that we should not dismiss. Other delegates began to murmur, discussing among themselves. A representative from the Kelvis Consortium stood. The consortium supports Earth's membership. We value innovation and adaptation. The humans have shown both. One by one, other delegates stood and declared their positions. Some supported Earth, others opposed. The chamber filled with debate. Ambassador Thex grew increasingly agitated. You are all making a mistake. The humans will prove to be a burden, not an asset. Perhaps, the Arbiter said calmly. Or perhaps they will surprise us. That is the nature of potential. The Arbiter's form pulsed with bright light calling for silence. It is time to vote. All those in favor of granting Earth membership in the Galactic Trade Alliance, signal now. Lights appeared throughout the chamber as delegates voted. Taiwan held his breath, watching the count appear on the central display. The numbers climbed. More votes for membership than he had dared hope. But also votes against, including large blocks that followed Thex's lead. The counting seemed to take forever. Taiwan felt Kiva press against his leg, offering silent support. Finally, the count stopped. The numbers appeared on the display for all to see. The chamber fell silent. The vote is complete, the Arbiter announced. By a margin of 68 to 32, Earth's membership is approved. The chamber erupted. Cheers from some sections, protests from others. The human delegates embraced each other, relief and joy on their faces. Hiram was crying. Dayan was smiling wider than Taiwan had ever seen. Ambassador Thex remained seated, his face a mask of fury. But he said nothing. The vote was final. The Arbiter raised a crystalline hand and silence gradually returned. Earth is now a full member of the Galactic Trade Alliance. You have all the rights and responsibilities that come with membership. The Arbiter looked at Taiwan. Human Taiwan, you have represented your species with honor. You have proven that humanity deserves a place among the stars. Taiwan bowed respectfully. Thank you. We will do our best to be worthy of this trust. As the council session ended and delegates began to leave, several beings approached Taiwan. High Commander Vorn was first. You did well, human, Vorn said. I look forward to working with your species. Thank you for speaking on our behalf, Taiwan said. It meant a lot. I spoke truth, Vorn replied. Nothing more. The commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. Though I admit I am curious to see if other humans will also befriend Vrelnath. It would be an interesting development. Other delegates came forward, introducing themselves properly now that Earth was an equal member. Some were genuinely friendly. Others were cautiously professional. But none dismissed Taiwan the way they had when he first arrived. When the chamber finally cleared, Taiwan stood with the other humans trying to process what had just happened. We did it, Hiram said quietly. We actually did it. You did it, Daun corrected, looking at Taiwan. You earned this for all of us. Taiwan shook his head. I was just the one standing in the arena, but this is for everyone on Earth, for everyone who will come after us. They walked back to the human embassy section together, Kiva following as always. As they passed through the station corridors, Taiwan noticed the change. Beings no longer ignored them or looked through them. Some nodded in greeting. Others simply watched with interest. The dismissal was truly over. That evening, Taiwan stood at an observation window, looking out at the stars. Kiva lay nearby, resting but alert. Hiram joined him. What are you thinking? She asked. That we have a lot of work ahead.